filled with excitement, fun, and is beyond limits. But the question is, are you ready to jump? If it is a yes, then you have jumped into the world of ultimate entertainment.
Welcome to YOLO 247, a place of fun, indulgence, and endless surprises.
From the Mumbai studios of Republic TV, it's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate.
Arnab Goswami on the debate at 10, powered by Reva University and Kitply, co-powered by IIHM.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and now it's time for the nation's sharpest opinion. And we know that the biggest story of the week, on which we have rolling coverage, our crews already there in New York and in Washington DC, is going to be Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 4-day visit, an extensive 4-day visit to the United States of America. This is a truly all-encompassing visit, and the idea is not just to entrench, deepen India-America relationships. It's a huge outreach globally. It's being talked about. And the interesting thing about this visit is that America has more at stake in this visit than India. And the most interesting aspect, which I wanted to speak about on the nation's sharpest opinion this evening, is this. There is no major nation in the world, I repeat, no major nation in the world which has this level and intensity of relationship simultaneously with both Russia and America. It's an impossibility in terms of a diplomatic feat. And it is something which people saw as absolutely unbelievable. In fact, I remember the commentariat at that point of time when we said, no, we will look at national interest, we will continue to deal with Moscow, said, oh, you're going to be a global pariah. America is now going to talk to you again. The NATO will boycott you. European Union will not let you set foot on their soil, etc., etc. You know, the usual things which the commentariats speak about. Because the problem with the commentariat, ladies and gentlemen, they look at everything from a theoretical perspective. They do not understand the reality. And the reality is that commerce and economics and economic types and business relationships determine both geostrategy, defense ties, and diplomatic relations. You don't establish relations like Manmohan Singh obsequiously went to the America. And I know the congressmen hate me for saying this, and the Latvian media doesn't like it, and the conventional geostrategic analysts hate it and say, oh no, why are you rubbing it in? But I felt it is not me. I felt it was Manmohan Singh who disgraced India when he went and stood before George W. Bush and said, most unseemingly, he said, Mr. Bush, the people of India love you. Well, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the people of India don't love you for insulting us like that as a nation. For today, the reality is that the same leader who was spoken about in the terms and said, here is a person who America won't talk with, is going to America as the first non-NATO ally to be offered Predator drones. That's huge. We are not part of a formal defense arrangement. We are the first non-NATO partner to be offered these Predator drones. That is a sign of growing trust. Now you can also say, no, it's not trust. It is the compulsion of America to do business with India. Well, in that sense too, it is Modi's success that he is negotiating and bringing America to negotiate on our terms. That is incredible. It's wonderful. It's magic. So when I say Modi magic in America, don't get me wrong, I'm not just talking about the thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who will be there when he speaks to them, etc. I am talking about the fact that India has been designated as a major defense partner by the USA while we continue to be working on every possible spectrum, defense and otherwise, and continue to be one of the largest buyers of Russian oil. That is reality. Ladies and gentlemen, Ask anyone today what is the biggest part of this outreach. The fact is that today India and US have signed the roadmap for defense industrial cooperation, which will relaunch a process that will connect the national security innovation ecosystems to R&D, which means we don't have to do what China did, steal their defense systems, bring down their spyware, and then do reverse engineering on it. What we are doing is that we are getting a deal like the General Electric HAL deal for 80% transfer of jet engines. This is bringing technology to India. This is bringing technological prowess to India on Indian soil, on Indian terms. We should be proud of that. And all the people out there who talk about, you don't, ladies and gentlemen, you don't do foreign policy by going and sitting on a truck from Washington to New York and doing drama. I'm really sorry. That is not respected. You don't do foreign policy by going on to a foreign capital and supporting an alleged spy who stole India's defense secrets. Maybe he gave it to the CIA, and you go to American soil and you support the spy. That's bad. That's anti-national. What is happening today, ladies and gentlemen, is that America has become the largest trading partner of India with these dynamics. Apple is opening stores. Critical technologies are being transferred to India on a daily basis. US has become the third largest FDI investor in India in 2023 alone. And all this is happening while Russia has become the largest oil supplier to India. And while Russia is praising India's approach on the Ukraine war, and Biden is hugging Modi at the G7, like it or not, hashtag Modi Magic in USA, Modi is doing something incredibly right. Now let's debate.
4 weeks ago, at the G7 meeting, it was the US president who left his seat, walked up to the Prime Minister and hugged him. This exemplified the dynamic between the two nations. Now Prime Minister Modi will land in New York in 25 hours from now.
I will say this much, that do expect concrete outcomes. Technology is going to be a very important key, especially critical and emerging technology.
Out of half a dozen bilateral meetings planned for Prime Minister Modi, half of them are said to be defense deals, which includes the GE 414 LCA, that is the Light Combat Aircraft Engine Technology Exchange, which the Indian government has been looking for, or the very important $3 billion MQ-98 drone deal. Both of these defense deals is something which the Indian military sector has been looking for.
We conduct a large number of bilateral military exercises, both bilateral as also regional in nature. Our armed forces of the two countries have all kinds of staff-to-staff engagement that takes place between the two sides. India also is an important deployer of the US equipment and platforms. Some of it are used by India.
US is already the highest bilateral trading country with India. But then the word natural allies, Prime Minister Modi and President Biden are going to try and achieve to literally implement it. And as far as the business is concerned, there are at least 14 major CEOs of American companies who are going to be meeting the Indian Prime Minister, trying to push that very agenda.
Are there any other economies on earth that are growing at 7% GDP? That's India. And I think it's important that we continue to advance the partnership.
Under Prime Minister Modi, India cannot be ignored.
I think a lot of people don't realize how important India is. I think that's why it's important for Prime Minister Modi to be here and have these consequential conversations. Anybody who's not thinking about the importance of India doesn't realize the strength in numbers, the amount of industrial base, the amount to produce things that China produces simultaneously, but from a much more friendly venue. Somebody who's following the World Trade Organization rules rather than breaking them. That's the kind of partner we need.
Simultaneously, India's bolstering ties with Russia, a feat that no other nation has achieved.
our trade with Russia in the last 1 year has gone up almost 4 times.
On ground, the Modi magic is undeniable.
The trilateral which is being talked about between India, US and China, yes, if implemented, it could be the most important trilateral in the world. But India has made it apparently very clear, both to the US and to the China, that India is more comfortable being a net peace provider than a net security provider.
Let's debate.
Familiar faces: Pankaj, Dr. Fuad Halim of the CPM, Sushant Sareen of the ORF, and Vivekananda Foundation, and Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP. My first question, Brahma Chelani, I just want your take on it, what you think is the most important takeaway of the upcoming trip. Is it the fact that we're able to balance powers globally well? Are we changing global dynamics or global geopolitics, or what else would you look at?
Arnab, India's growing economic and military heft has made it crucial to a stable balance of power in Asia and the wider Indo-Pacific region. And the US-India partnership is central to peace and security in the Indo-Pacific region. It's also critical to shaping the new global order. Biden's NSA said in New Delhi that Modi's visit is going to be transformative. And he also said that the visit will yield substantial results. So while the administration is clearly upbeat about Prime Minister Modi's visit, a number of American academics, scholars, have been very negative on Modi's upcoming visit. So there is this dichotomy between the administration being very upbeat and a series of articles in academic journals as well as in newspapers that are highly critical of the US effort to cement a closer partnership with India. It's very interesting how normally you don't see this. You normally don't see in the run-up to a major visit of a foreign leader that American intellectuals and journalists writing critically about that leader and the country that he represents. But in this case, we're seeing this kind of dichotomy. For example, one commentator said that Washington is making a bad bet on India, that treating India as a key partner would not help the US in its geopolitical competition with China. Another declared that India will never be an ally of the US. And a third said in his essay that, that India at best can be an ally of convenience. So we have these negative vibes coming from influential people, and therefore we'll have to look at the results of this visit very carefully.
Yes.
Because of course the defense deals are very important. Some very important defense deals are going to be unveiled during the visit. But I think most important will be to see the fine print, whether the technology transfer will happen, for example, even for the GE engines, or will the US keep a tight leash on the ratio of the technology that is transferred to India?
Yeah, of course. But Dr. Chelani, before I go into the political debate, Sanju, I want to bring in Sushant also. I personally think, Sushant, that the group of commentators Dr. Chelani is talking about may be becoming less relevant every passing year. This is only, I was there when Modi went in 2014. It was all about his presence, the dynamics. First time Prime Minister goes to the US, earlier denied visa, now storming America. That was the theme then. But now, every single G7 summit, Sushant, India has been invited. Every country wants to join us on our bullish growth. The West also has got its own reality check. They said they will sanction India for Russian oil, and now the fact is that they are falling in line. So I'm just saying that does this group of people really matter as much, or is it their last-ditch attempt vis-a-vis Narendra Modi and India?
Arnab, like India, the American system is also very raucous kind of a democracy. People are free to say what they want to say. But while I agree with this dichotomy, and it's very stark, it's unmissable, this dichotomy which Brahma Chelani is pointing out.
Yes.
But I suspect what is happening is that the establishments and the policymakers of both countries are far ahead of the curve than what these analysts and these commentators are. I think most of these analysts and commentators, are talking about something which the guys who are really going to be making policy, have gone beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any issues on these grounds between the two countries? Of course there are. So, for example, if something happens to an Indian citizen in the United States, don't we take it up with the US? We take it up at an official level. Similarly, the Americans have a certain thing that, they have to interfere. That is noise. When you close your ears to the noise and you look at what is actually happening on the ground between the two countries, then I think it's remarkable the amount of distance we have traveled. I think the last big thing which happened between India and the US was the nuclear deal, which was 2005. And I think it's 18 years since then. I think we are now going into this is the next point of, change between how the two countries are going to relate to each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's a paradigm shift which is taking place. Let me give you a small example of what happens when leaders meet. And this is something which was told to me by a foreign service officer who's no longer alive. In 1980, when Mrs. Gandhi became the prime minister, she had gone to the United States, and Reagan was, a right-wing Republican president of the US, very anti-communist. But Reagan had been told that Mrs. Gandhi, is pink, or she's a commie and stuff like that. When he met her and they both started talking to each other, later on, Reagan told one of his close associates that if this woman is a commie, then I am a Japanese. So what happens is that very often when leaders meet with each other, many of these misperceptions and these canards and this calumny, which, some of these media guys hurl, a lot of it gets dissipated the moment they come face to face with each other.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it's important for leaders also to meet each other.
Yes.
But having said all of that, just one last point. For almost a year, we have been pilloried because we were buying Russian oil.
Yes.
Now, increasingly, you will see the same papers which were literally abusing us for busting sanctions, buying Russian oil, are now saying that, look, India did the world a favor by buying Russian oil, processing it, and then selling the refined products back to Europe and other countries which had sanctioned Russia. What we did was we stabilized the oil markets.
Yeah.
We ensured that the prices didn't go beyond, a certain point. In fact, at the time the war started with the Ukraine, it was projected that petrol prices or fuel or crude prices would probably touch $200 a barrel. Now they are less than $100 a barrel. And one of the reasons for that is the amount of oil that India is processing and then selling to rest of the world.
Yes.
So in a sense, that entire logic which was earlier being used to pillory us has now been turned on its head. And people are saying that if the recession in Europe and rest of the West is not as bad as it would have been, but for India buying Russian oil and doing the world a favor. So I think, people can make as much noise as they want to make, but the realities are very different.
Before I go to the political debate, I have two people on one side. Sanju, I'll come to you right after that. With Dr. Fuad Halim. By the way, just small comment to Dr. Chelani and Sushant, as you know, these people who take this sort of predictable anti-India, anti-Modi position are usually in the ancient history departments of some mid-American, Midwestern university. They are not in the geostrategy or international relations or economics departments. So their relevance is suspect. They are usually students of literature and history. Not that those are irrelevant, but they're not relevant in this context of this debate. Dr. Fuad Halim, This is unseen diplomacy, and you were among those who were critical. Your party was very critical of India's approach to the US. I think you still are. But can you name any other government which has maintained this balancing act which is necessary in diplomacy since Indian independence in such difficult times?
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, Narendra Modi is running a very, very tight rope, and he is balancing an act, and it's important for him to balance the act. And what's unfortunate is that India is at the receiving end of this balancing act. Now, among the numerous flip-flops that Narendra Modi has gone through when he banned the what you call the 500 and the 1,000 rupee note and replace them with the 2,000 rupee note, and again he had to what you call is in the process of removing the 2,000 rupee note because all that he said was not fulfilled. In terms of what he's done for the drones, for example, last February, you know, it was a very categorically what you call position that the BJP and Narendra Modi had taken, that there's a lot of technology in India, there's Atmanirbhar Bharat, and that is the reason why we will not purchase the Predator drones. And just before him going to the US of A, we see that as what you call a gift to the US administration and the defense, what you call economy of the US, he's passed a budget of $3.5 billion to purchase drones from
these drones will be used
the US
hopefully against our enemies. So you have a problem with that?
No, in last February, the problem that I have with that is in last February, the defense establishment had made certain arguments, especially the Indian Air Force has said that vis-a-vis the drones and aircraft, modern aircraft, that as a requirement, the money should be spent to purchase modern aircraft. And I think so that's an argument
modern
that is
aircraft
valid,
as in, I don't think it's
coming
modern
from the
aircraft
Air Force
as in
itself. Last February, let me finish. Let me finish.
So who's not buying the aircraft? Just 1 minute. Can I counter you? Can I just counter you, sir? Dr. Halim, 1 minute. The fact is, sir, you are incorrect.
Let me finish.
So
I just want to finish.
So your video is frozen. I'm still speaking to you. Listen. No, I want you to finish. But I want to counter you factually.
I can't help it. I can't help that. That's your technology. No, you go ahead with that, but let me finish. You see, last February, this discussion was elaborate. It was extensive. The various agencies, wings of the Army, Navy and the Air Force had evaluated this, and they had put forward their argument. It's very unfortunate that the Army, Navy and the Air Force have not been consulted, and it's the Defense Ministry.
I lost the video and audio there now, and there's no conspiracy there. Sanju is on the debate. I don't understand. I think Dr. Fuad Halim is criticizing things for the sake of it because this level of technology transfer has never happened before. I mean, these 80% transfer of engine jet technology to be used in the LC has never happened anywhere else in the world. Sanju is on the debate. Fuad, you got disconnected. Sanju is on the debate responding to what you said. Sanju.
Arnab, I just want your team to show this. This is the latest cover of The Economist. And this shows Joe Biden and, there's a tiger next to him. And this cover of The Economist says, India is America's new best friend and why US is, now ready to acknowledge that India is indispensable to its larger scheme of things. The reason I showed this cover to you is not that we need validations from The Economist, which incidentally is a British magazine, but for the longest time that I know, The Economist has been so critical of the Modi government, and prior to both 2014 general elections and prior to 2019, it actually anointed Rahul Gandhi as the potential prime minister. So, The Economist may not have too much of credibility, but for even Modi baiters and Modi naysayers to finally acknowledge that India's time has come in terms of the bilateral relationship that it shares with the US. I think that is something that cannot be ignored. And I'll just give you very quickly a couple of points that I want your audience to be cognizant of. A, in 2013, the bilateral trade between India and the US was less than 2 lakh crore. Today, the bilateral trade between India and the United States is more than 7.1 lakh crore. In the last 9 years of the Modi government, there has been more than a 3 times rise in the India-US trade partnership. Point number 2, and this is the number by the World Trade Organization. In the last 9 years, India-US trade has risen by more than 200% in rupee terms, and more importantly, more than 95% in dollar terms. Now the most important point, from a layman's perspective, when was the last time that an Apple product was sold in India? It was the Macintosh, which was sold way back in 1986. And since then, we've been consuming Apple products. But after 37 long years, Apple actually opened a full-fledged bona fide retail outlet at the BKC in Mumbai, followed by another one at Saket in New Delhi. The limited point I'm making is this, and Apple is not some small company. Apple today has a market cap of more than $3 trillion. It has a market cap more than the GDP of even many developed nations. And for Apple to actually decide to make in India is a huge vindication of how the Indo-US trade partnership is progressing. I will also say one more thing, that the Quad was set up way back in 2007, but the Quad largely has been decadent. And I say full marks to Narendra Modi for making it a vibrant platform once again. Also, let's not forget that it was under George W. Bush that in 2005, a fact that is not lost on anyone on this panel, Narendra Modi was denied a visa. And I'm told he is only the 4th leader in the world who on the 22nd of June this week will be addressing the joint session of the US Congress for the 2nd time. The last time he did that was in 2016. And this is not rhetoric. This is not simply, drame-bazi as the Congress would like to put it. This is serious diplomacy that we are talking about.
This time. No doubt about it. And
Exactly.
Pankaj, I think if I just get Pankaj in, so because I want to.
Can I make a last point, Arnab? The most important highlight of the Indo-US relationship is that massive $46 billion deal with Boeing to supply to India 220 C-295 aircraft with an escalation clause that we could actually take the total amount of the deal to more than $55 billion in the next couple of years. And let me tell you that in 2018-19, before COVID struck, for the first time in the longest time, India actually had a positive trade balance with the United States of America.
I tell you this, you see, Pankaj, and I think Brahma and Sushant will bear me out on this. I think Modi does not approach foreign policy through a romantic lens. He approaches it through a very pragmatic point of view. Relationship with Russia is strong, but there is no over-dependence with Russia. The MMRDA deal went to Rafale, it went to France, it did not go to America. And you know, Pankaj, how much the Americans were lobbying. I am told they were in touch with some Congress party leaders rather closely, who then got upset and started lobbying against Rafale. The question is this balancing is incredible. It is business oriented. And the more the business you give to America, the more technology they will transfer. They are not going to transfer technology if you give them $10 million of business. The Americans are big businessmen. Maybe Modi has understood what works for America. Maybe he's understood it very well. And he's understood what works for Putin also. Pankaj.
True.
See, all this drum beating and dancing by the BJP spokesperson is fine. But please don't try to make us believe that this state visit honor is because United States now sees India as an equal partner. Don't feel so overwhelmed.
What do they see us as?
You also know, Mr. Goswami,
an unequal partner.
Also know, Mr. Goswami, that there are no free lunches in the world.
That's exactly the point I made.
There are close-handed geopolitical and parsimonious diplomatic intentions behind it.
Sure there are.
Please discuss them. Let's not forget.
I'm practical about it. I'm not saying there's idealism. Am I saying, Sushant, the Americans are idealistically warming up to India? I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's money, there's business, there's employment. American economy needs a pumping in of Indian investment, whether it is via an aircraft deal or a defense deal or a semiconductor deal. Sushant can respond to you. Sushant.
No, I agree with what Pankaj is saying. I 100% agree with him. And which is why I'm saying that this is such an important time in India-US relationship. That today, if the Americans want something from us, even we want something from them. It's not if we are buying those Boeings or we are buying the Reapers or we are buying a whole lot of other stuff, it is not as though we are doing them a favor. They are doing us also a favor in the process because they are parting with some of the technologies, they're parting with some weapons platforms which otherwise they would not give to a country which is not signed or which is not one of their alliance partners. So it's not, and I agree that yes, there is a transactional aspect in the relationship. And why not? Why should there not be a transactional aspect in the relationship? Why do you want that there should be a rishtedari between you and them? I have my interests, they have their interests. If their interests and my interests are converging, then why should I not let them converge? So I don't understand.
Let's see what all we get as a result of this visit. Let's see what all we get as a result of this visit in the areas of US-India initiative on critical and emerging technology. In the areas of
Amazon
one second,
Arnab, just one sentence. Look, if you think that the other countries and even the Russians don't do it with you, forget everybody else. Nobody is going to give their crown jewels to you. You should be rest assured on that count. And if you are expecting that to happen, then you are living in cloud cuckoo land. But you will get some technologies and then you start developing from them. Yeah. If you think that somebody is going to come and hand something over to you on a platter, even if they were to do it, you can't use it. You don't have the absorptive capacity to start using some of those technologies because even then for everything else, you will be going to them and asking them for materials.
No, also,
so please try and understand how the system works.
If I may just request Brahma Chelani,
with India in the areas of artificial intelligence,
I got you,
quantum technology,
yeah, so if I can just
and advanced wireless and all those areas.
Sure,
let's see how lenient US would be.
Sure, let's see. I would like Dr. Chelani to respond to Fuad's point earlier, where Fuad said, I'm disappointed that after talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are going into buy or import American technology. While my view on that, Dr. Chelani, it's like saying that do not use any American technology in the building of a road which connects our infrastructure better vis-a-vis China. I think it's as silly as that. But I'd like you to respond to him because what we are doing here, for example, with the GE deal, is that we are using the technology that we get from GE and implementing it into the light combat aircraft. So we get the technology, we do the deal, we strengthen the light combat aircraft, which is indigenous. Fuad seems to have a problem with that. He wants to go the full Atmanirbhar route, which may take years. What's your take, Dr. Chelani?
Well, first, the GE deal has a technology transfer clause to it, but the drone deal doesn't involve any technology transfer. Obviously, the Americans have no intent to share their drone technology with India. The GE transfer deal has been in the works for more than 20 years. So it takes a long time to get the Americans to agree to a major technology transfer deal. But I think there's a more important point that we should not forget. In my career, I've seen that every visit of an Indian Prime Minister to the United States has been hyped by the Indian media. Whoever was the Prime Minister, the Indian media has hyped the visit of the Indian Prime Minister to Washington. This is the first time that I know where the US government is hyping the visit of an Indian Prime Minister. I've not come across this before. Biden sent his own NSA and Defense Secretary to New Delhi this month to tie up the deliverables. His NSA has laid out a very ambitious agenda for Modi's visit, and he has already told the Indian media in New Delhi that there will be substantial results from this visit. So the US administration is hyping the importance of Modi's visit. But there's also a larger question The larger question is about what sort of relationship does the Biden administration wish to have with India? We know that the US wants to co-opt India as a close partner. The US for a long time has been seeking to bring India within its orbit of close allies. The question is, what kind of friend will India be to the US?
That's a good point.
If you look at some of these academics who are writing these negative essays about Modi in India, and who are saying that India will never be America's ally, the fact is that allies of the US are tied to the US by treaty. There's a treaty-based relationship between the US and its allies, where the US is the hub, the allies are its spokes. This is a patron-client relationship.
This is totally different. I take that.
Arnab, can I quickly come in?
This will not work with India.
I want Fuad to come in, and then I'll come and end with you, Sanju. You see, Dr. Fuad Halim, I also like to bring one more dimension. 10 years back, most unfortunately, America looked upon India in terms of hyphenating the relationship with Pakistan. And today, as Aishwarya pointed out in his report, there's talk of an India, China, America trilateral. It's also stature. I know you have differences, but surely you will concede, even you will concede, that in terms of stature and global power play, we are operating at a completely different level. And the Prime Minister's visit only underlines that.
Well, there are two things you have to keep in mind. The first thing is that I thank the previous speaker for agreeing with me that the purchase of drones is very different from other things, and it is not totally in favor of India at this point of time, and it's a purchase that the Indian government has indulged in just prior to Narendra Modi's visit. Beyond that, there are other spin-offs and fallouts, especially those objections of the Indian Air Force which they made last year, which stands true till today. The second thing is one has to keep in mind when the Indian Prime Minister has been visiting the US over the past couple of times on the question of food, on the question of pharmaceuticals, there has not been serious what you call considerations of the Indian interests that have been what you call won by the Prime Minister.
How so?
In terms of the patent laws, in terms of transfer of technology, in terms of the various GMR regulations that the what you call the world wants for Indian factories to maintain. So it leaves Indian what you call industry with serious disadvantages. They do not get a level playing field, and the export of Indian food grains to the US are severely hampered, and there's very high bars of there. So Narendra Modi has not been successful in actually bringing out the Indian interest in these negotiations. So there's been failure. See, if you don't want me to speak, I won't speak. I'm not giving any monologue.
I'll let her counter you.
She can counter in her
I'll let her counter you. I'll let her counter you because of limited time.
I can't keep on what you call.
No, you have your say. This is a debate. This cannot be a monologue by you. I'm sorry.
No.
This is not a monologue by you.
I began with you.
I began with you. Cognizance of the fact that it cannot be a monologue by you.
Okay, no personal comments. Have a substantive point. Yes, thank you.
There is no personal comment here. I need to make a pertinent point.
I'm not here to listen to Sanju's comments.
Yes, I need to make a pertinent point. That's all I'm saying.
Listen to her and then you can counter. Thank you.
May I please, Arnab?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't want to go into generic saying Narendra Modi has not.
Show. You're running
May
the show.
I please finish? Yes, Dr. Fuad Halim, I heard you. You had a lengthy monologue.
Please talk about the Please talk about the pharmaceutical industries.
You don't need to give me
Please talk about the intellectual property rights. The capacities that the Indian pharmaceutical industry need to wrangle out from the American pharmaceutical industries.
Please now let her complete with that. Thank you very much. We have a very important debate on Bengal also coming up next.
Thank you. Now, Arnab, I need to make a very quick point. I was just listening to
I just asked you a question, Sanju. If you can talk about the drug.
Please now keep quiet.
Okay, now, okay, Sanju, Fuad, she heard you. Thank you.
Can you talk about?
She heard you. Let her
about
respond.
The bars that the American government have put to the
no, Sanju, no, shut up, please.
Food grains from India.
Please,
Sanju, be decent. I know your party doesn't teach you that.
What she heard you. What she heard you. She has heard you. She has heard you. Fuad, loud and clear. Thank you. You both have great audio-video links.
Answer that.
Fuad, she has heard you. Fuad, she has heard you. Fuad. She's heard you. Now let her respond to that. Thank you so much, Fuad. Please, be kind. Thank you.
Arnab, now let me tell you one thing. I don't want to get into generics. I will give you some specific examples which were even cited by Ruchira Kamboj, the permanent representative at the UN from India's end. I think we had 3 landmark developments under the Modi government with respect to Indo-US relations. One was signing in December 2015 the LEMOA, Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. One was signing the COMCASA, Compatibility and Security Agreement in September 2018, and one was signing the BECA, Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement for Geospatial Cooperation in October 2020. And I have named these 3 agreements because they are basically about sharing technology, sharing logistical information, sharing geospatial information, sharing basic military information between India and the United States. So people who come here and say, कि कुछ हुआ ही नहीं है, and Modi's visit to the US is only a lot of rhetoric and bluster, are completely, out of sync with the ground reality.
Okay.
And I would just like to say one more thing. I was listening to Ruchira Kamboj a few hours back, and she said the biggest, benefit out of this entire Narendra Modi and Joe Biden meet is the fact that on the 21st of June, when Narendra Modi will be leading 180 country-led delegation at the United Nations to celebrate International Yoga Day. That is huge in terms of India's soft power outreach. We keep talking of soft power, but can you imagine the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy having a platform all to himself with 180 countries from the United Nations participating as part of the International Yoga Day celebrations?
These are all significant steps, but only for want of time. This whole week, this entire week, we have many crews led by Aishwarya Kapoor, all reporting from the United States. And I call upon all Indians to look upon this event and the visit as a matter of pride and not as a political contest. I thank you. We have so many things to do politics. I thank you as well, Fuad. Thank you, Sushant. Thank you, Pankaj.